What's going on, guys? Welcome to another Doctor Who review. Today I'm reviewing the Ninth Doctor Christopher Eccleston story, The Unquiet Dead. This is Series 1, Episode 3. It is the first time we go into the past, so we've had, Rose set in present day, we had the end of the world set in the future, now we've got The Unquiet Dead set in the past, 1869, is it? Something like that. Let's get into this one, starting off with the cast. Christopher Eccleston as the Ninth Doctor. Once again, Christopher Eccleston is really good in this episode. He has some really funny moments with Charles Dickens, when they're in the carriage together, kind of fanboying over him. Really good moments there. Obviously he has to go after Rose after she gets taken by the what do you call them? The funeral parlor people, she gets taken by them and he has to go after them, and has some very serious moments as well and some funny moments. And yeah, altogether, I don't know if I'm ever really going to say anything bad about Christopher Eccleston, but in this one especially, he's very good. Billie Piper as Rose Tyler, also very good here. She has some really good moments with Gwyneth. That they're the main moments for Rose in this story. Other than that, she doesn't have a whole lot going on in this story, but those moments with Gwyneth, definitely the best moments here. I will briefly mention, I might as well mention Eve Miles as Gwyneth. She is very good here as well. Of course, this is the first time we see, well, it's not Gwen, it's Gwyneth, but Eve Miles, who goes on to play Gwen in Torchwood and does make an appearance in Doctor Who as well. It's the first time we see her, and we figure out later on that this is kind of a predecessor of Gwen. So I think that's cool. They've got the whole Cardiff Rift thing as well, so it all links together. I don't know whether they already had this kind of planned out at this point. Probably not, but it's cool to, know where that goes. And I will also mention Simon Callow as Charles Dickens. I'm not going to mention the other characters. They're not as big of a focus as these ones. He's also really good. I can't say that I really know much about Charles Dickens. I haven't read any of his books, but I know of A Christmas Carol. I know of Oliver Twist. That's about all I can think of off the top of my head, and those are ones that get mentioned in the episode as well. But from what I can tell, at least with this character, I think the actor does very well, and he is an enjoyable character in this story. So this episode is written by Mark Gatiss. This would be his first of many scripts for Doctor Who. He'd come back quite a few times through to series 10, I believe, would be his last episode, at least thus far, writing for Doctor Who. And yeah, this is his first time doing that. And just off the top of my head, thinking of his other stories, for me personally, this is actually probably one of his better ones. I don't think Mark Gatiss has the best scripts altogether in Doctor Who. They're either kind of just, yeah, they're all right, or they're fairly poor in some instances. I think this one is one of his better ones. But anyway, let's get on to some points about this episode. So we start with the Doctor fanboying. I mentioned this before, but he gets into the coach with Charles Dickens, doesn't know who he is at first. Once he figures out who he is, he starts really, going like, oh my God, you're Charles Dickens. I love this book. I love this part. Mind you, I don't like this part and this and this. And he goes crazy, he keeps going on. He says, I'm your biggest fan. And then Charles Dickens is like, fan? What is a fan? The Doctor's trying to explain it. And then he's like, wait, never mind. I'm getting distracted. We've got to go and save Rose. Just that whole sequence in the cab. It is perfect Russell T Davies writing. It's not something that I could see Moffat or Chris Chibnall writing. It is very much Russell T Davies writing, and it's done very well. And it's just the Doctor fanboying like that is just a really fun thing to see. The Doctor and Rose meeting Charles Dickens, of course, that was the Doctor's meeting with Charles Dickens. It's a very brief thing when Rose figures out who he is, but I also think just really funny, well done moment where the Doctor's just like, hi Rose, this is Charles Dickens, by the way, and Rose is just like, okay, sure, Charles Dickens, all right, fair enough. Nice little funny introduction there. They don't, go crazy with it, but I just like, this is the first famous person that Rose, at least from her past, that Rose has met. So she's just like, oh, and it's just all very, because they've got the Gelth zombies coming after him at this time, so they can't have a big moment, they can't ponder on it. So it's just literally got to be, Rose, this is Charles Dickens. She's just like, okay, sure, this is Charles Dickens. Let's go with that. monsters that live in gas but can also put themselves in dead bodies. So I don't know if it's that they live in gas, actually. I think it's more that they are made up of a sort of gas. So, at the start we first see them inside the old woman, and then, when the old woman is in the theater and she, the gas gets flung around all over the place, and you see it go into like the gas lantern sort of things, the gas lights. That's when the Doctor figures out, oh, they're living inside gas. They are made of gas somewhat. And then it's also explained that, the reason why they're going into dead bodies is because when a human dies, it emits gas, and, so that gives them a perfect host to live in. So I like that explanation. It makes sense. It's good, but obviously they don't have unlimited amounts of gas in humans or whatever, so they can't sustain being in there for a long period of time. Same goes with the gas lights and stuff. They can't constantly be there. They're trying to jump around, and figure out where they want to go. Gwyneth mentions Bad Wolf, so I wrote this down first of all thinking, oh, this is the first mention of Bad Wolf. It's not, though, because the end of the world, there is actually a very brief moment where over the system, over the kind of what do you call it? I don't know, PA system, I guess, on the spaceship in the end of the world, they do mention something about Bad Wolf. But other than that, haven't heard anything about it. But this is the first time we hear, someone talking to one of our main characters, in this case Rose, about Bad Wolf. So that's a very big thing there. First big hint, I'd say, into this, because it was very much a passing thing in End of the World. It is more of a focused thing here that you can home in on a lot more. So I thought that was interesting. The Gelth just want a physical form again. So this changes, because after this, you then figure out that the Gelth actually tricked the Doctor because they want to take over the Earth. And originally they say they used to live in bodies like us, and because of the Time War, and the Time War gets brought up again, it's been brought up a couple of times over the last couple of episodes, because of the Time War, their planet died, their bodies died, and they are now left just as gas creatures, and they're trying to find new ways to, to live again properly in bodies, and that's what they want. And they just say, this is what we want to do, and the Doctor believes them because, from what he can tell, they haven't killed anyone. They've just been taking over bodies that are already dead, and they haven't actually gone out and killed anyone. So, at this point, he's like, fair enough, this might be the case. And, there's this whole dilemma of the Doctor going, all right, well, we'll let you have humans' dead bodies because we're not using them. And Rose is like, you can't do that. It's not respectful. And the Doctor's like, well, what would you rather, this race die off, or your humans that are already dead, just have them reused? I love how he's like being recycled. I'm watching these episodes with my girlfriend, who's kind of half watching, to be honest. She's not massively invested, but I am at least getting her to sit in the room while I watch these. And she had a little bit of a chuckle at that whole recycling line the Doctor says. She thought that was quite funny. But yeah, it makes sense. But in the end, it turns out once they actually do this whole thing, because Gwyneth's got this kind of, she calls it the sight, where she can basically see things in her mind. It's not massively explained, but turns out she can kind of control the Gelth somewhat. And she ends up standing in this kind of what they call the bridge, which is, the place where the Gelth are at their strongest. And they're going to do this so that they can then, release all these Gelth into dead bodies. And then eventually the Doctor's like, this is only a temporary solution. I will get you to another planet and, have it so that you can build your own bodies and you can live again like you used to. It turns out, though, the Gelth were lying. They just actually want to just take over this Earth, use all the Earth bodies, and have Earth for themselves. So the Doctor gets tricked there. Finally, Gwyneth has to sacrifice herself to destroy the Gelth. So she's in this bridge. She's got the Gelth all around her. She seems like she's still alive, but she basically can't leave here. If she leaves, the Gelth are just going to go off and do their thing. They've already escaped now. So the only way to get rid of them and stop them from taking over the world is to I guess, blow the building up is what she ends up doing. How that really works, I don't 100% know. She blows up the gas monsters, I don't know. I guess if you blow up gas, it all dies. I guess that makes sense. But she has to sacrifice herself. She can't leave. If she leaves, the Gelth leave with her. So she has to sit there and blow up herself and the building and the Gelth along with her. And in the end, because Rose is like, how could you let her do that to the Doctor? The Doctor's like, look, he thinks she was dead from the moment she stepped in that arch. From the moment she got in there, the Gelth took over, she was dead. So that was a pretty brutal moment and a hard one for Rose and Charles Dickens and the Doctor as well. But the Doctor was like, you know what? And the Doctor is a lot more ruthless in these first few episodes of Series 1. He's come off the back of the Time War recently. He's in a different state of mind. And I mean, the whole thing with Rose throughout Series 1, Series 2 is Rose kind of gets the Doctor back to where he should be, like mentally. He's a little bit unhinged at the first parts of these episodes. But in the end, he's like, well, this was kind of the only option. There wasn't really another option. So yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, The Unquiet Dead. I enjoyed this one actually. I've seen all these episodes quite a few times. I'm going to be honest, probably 5 or 6 times. I'm going to say if it's like Series 1, Series 2. So I have seen this one quite a bit. It's not one that I would go back to, and if I was just wanting to pick out a random episode to watch one evening or whatever, I wouldn't per se go for The Unquiet Dead, but it's always been one that I've thought, yeah, it's decent, it's not amazing, but it's not terrible. It's just kind of one of those middle of the road stories, and that's pretty much how I think about it now. So I'm going to give The Unquiet Dead a 7 out of 10, same grade that I gave Rose. I would put it a little bit behind Rose. I think Rose is a little bit better, but personally, and I personally think this is better than The End of the World though. That is my personal opinion. But yeah, it's one of those stories that I think doesn't get a whole lot of love, to be honest. It's one that seems to be forgotten about, and not a lot of people like it, but it can be a bit boring and slow in points. But I actually think it's a relatively decent story. First time in the new series going to the past, meeting Charles Dickens. I think the Gelth are a good enough villain. I mean, they're not amazing, but I think they're good enough. And yeah, 7 out of 10 for The Unquiet Dead. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.